Call to order the October 23rd, 2018 meeting of the Oshkosh Common Council. Would the city clerk please take the roll?
Allison Osby. Here. Palmieri.
Here.
Mugrower.
Here.
Rousey.
Here.
Peck. Herman.
Here.
Cummings.
Here.
Present 6.
Would you all please rise while Councilmember Allison Osby leads us in the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance?
We ask for guidance tonight as we begin this meeting. May all those who participate in our discussions and our decisions reflect the values that we cherish in this great city. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Coming down to thank our two students who led us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you guys want to come over here and then look over in that corner. Which one is Dylan? Let you go first. Can I ask you your name, where you go to school, and what your favorite subject is?
Hi, my name is Dylan Connop. I'm a senior at Lourdes Academy, and my favorite subject is math.
Trina, did you hear that? Math major. She's our head of finance. And Dominic?
Hi, I'm Dominic Kane. I go to Lourdes Academy High School. I'm in 9th grade, and my favorite subject is also math.
Wow, Trina, 2 accountants for you. Thank you, guys. You can stay and watch or go home and do some math homework. First on our agenda are citizen statements to council. Citizens are to address the council only. Statements are limited to 5 minutes. Must address items that are not listed on the council meeting agenda, are limited to issues that have an impact on the city of Oshkosh, and the common council may address at a future meeting, and must not include endorsements of any candidates or other electioneering. Pam, is anyone registered to speak?
No one is registered.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda items. And those items are of a routine administrative nature that are voted on by the council in a single roll call vote. Staff recommends approval of all items. Any member of the public or common council may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for discussion. Pam?
No one is registered.
All right, I'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. It appears that no one wishes to address or to speak to any items, so would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Mugrower.
Aye.
Rousey.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 6.
There were no items removed from the consent agenda, so we'll move on to pending ordinances. The first is ordinance 18-533, approve zone change from institutional I to corporate business park with plan development overlay in parens CPB-PD, close parens, outlot 1 and 2 of certified survey map 7398, 1400 block of North Kohler Street. The Plan Commission recommends approval. Pam?
No one is registered.
I'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
Thank you, Mayor. Is Mr. Burrich here? On 18533, on this approved zone change from institutional to corporate business park for outlots 1 and 2, just clarifying then, so outlot 1 is owned by the applicant, outlot 2 is still owned by the city, right?
Yes.
And it appears that in the staff memo, there was no discussion by Plan Commission on that. And I have concerns that the applicant is applying for the change of zoning for not just their outlet, but the cities, and it, in that was indicated that we don't have any specific plans yet, and there's a reason why we don't have any specific plans for that area yet, because we're not into that phase of this. I'm concerned about the green space or the institutional getting gobbled up by the corporate business park. So can maybe someone give a little more detail on that?
I'd be happy to answer that question. The area south of Keller, southeast of Keller, is being detached from the rest of the park by Keller because the right-of-way will bisect part of that park. And that area included area that not only we were swapping with Mr. Hoopman for the dedication he provided us on Oshkosh Ave. We also have that little piece north of Rath Lane, and I believe that's the piece you're talking about,
Yes.
north of Rath Lane. Right now, we have no plans for that, but it's not going to be developable as a park area. We see it more as a Rath Lane potentially being vacated, so actually development could take place on that area south of Keller rather than any other type of use. So that's why, to be consistent with the corporate business park that we are planning for south of Keller, south and east of Keller, it would be appropriate to rezone both pieces.
But if it's not developable, the northern piece, Outlot 2, what difference would it make if it's not developable, that piece of it? If the one south of Keller, or Outlot 1, if I understand it correctly, is?
They're both south of Keller.
Yes.
The one that's between Keller and Rath, I think that's the one you're referencing.
Yeah, it's kind of that little thin slice of pizza there.
And it's kind of, yes, it is thin, and it's really not developable as it is. It does require development of the lot that is south of Rath Lane. Our expectation is someday Rath Lane will be vacated because Keller and Rath Lane are just too close together, and it would make sense to develop Rath Lane, this outlot, and all the property to the south as for one lot, and that is all already zoned corporate business park.
Yeah, I think the vision behind the development of this area below Keller is all corporate business park, and that's the developable area. We still know that we will need to deal with Rath Lane at some point, and we'll deal with that down the road. We just want to make sure that we get the zoning in place, because we know everything south of the road is theoretically developable at some point. Everything on the north side of the road, that will be generally part of the Lakeshore Golf Course, or the old Lakeshore Golf.
And so there was no discussion by Plan Commission on this? It was just, we're going to recommend approval, no discussion?
No, I think we've seen, when we've seen those previous GDPs and SIPs come through in the area that showed the hotel being developed kind of just east of that, or on Outlot 1 in that particular area. So I think they looked at that, it's putting the pieces of the puzzle together on this one.
Okay, thank you for that detail.
Councilmember Herman.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Burridge, is that the land where there used to be a vacant home, a white home on that property? And at one time, the county was looking at building a parking lot there? Or is that still owned by the county that butts up to Two Brothers?
Yeah, I think that's to the west. That's to the west.
That's still to the west. So this is the property pretty much from the east of that, where that house was that was torn down, and there was preliminary discussions of a parking lot going in there for the tribal trail?
No, this is still
Still farther south?
Still farther to the east
East?
and to the north. So if you took Keller Street up to the north in the corner
Right.
there,
Yep.
where it kind of meets up with Rath, that's in that area. That's where that Outlot 1 is.
It's all
Okay,
east of
so
Keller.
that's actually,
It's all east of Keller.
it's east of Keller, but it's on the north side of Rath Lane then,
Yes.
correct? I'm looking at a map, so, I guess I'm just,
If you-
because isn't that where that great, then you're talking about where the metal storage building is, where they used to store, that's not, you're farther east
We're
yet?
farther east still.
Right next to Robbins is where they're referring to right
It's right in, and I can.
Yeah.
Right
okay.
next to Mr.
Right here,
Eaton's
here's
house.
Keller, there's Oshkosh Ave. This is that area that we're talking about right here.
Okay, where we were gonna put a pedestrian bicycle path on the backside of golf.
We were doing that over here when we were, we were talking about the trailhead over here at
You're
one
right.
point, what you're talking
Right.
about.
That's farther over, that's those two buildings.
Correct.
On the end of the map there.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to get a little more clarification. Make sure I know which piece of property we're voting on. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
No.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Kraus,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 5-1.
Next, we have ordinance 18-534. Approve a zone change from suburban mixed-use district in parens SMU close parens to neighborhood mixed-use district with a planned development overlay in parens NMU-PD at 3485 Lake Butamore Drive, and Plan Commission recommends approval. Pam,
No one is registered.
bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Rousey,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 6.
We have 2 new ordinances, and there will be no formal action taken on either one at this meeting. The first is ordinance 18-535, repeal and create chapter 24 slash wastewater systems. Pam?
No one is registered.
Next is ordinance 18-536, approve amendment to section 2-38, paren A, close, paren bid board membership and terms to increase membership by 3 members. Pam?
No one is registered.
I see no one from the council wanting to address either issue. Next, we have new resolution, resolution 18-537. Approve special event Christine Ann Domestic Abuse Services, Inc. to utilize Menominee Park and city streets for the Race to the Light Walk, December 1st, 2018. Pam,
No one is registered.
bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Please take the roll.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Rousey,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 6.
Next, we have Resolution 18-538, approve amendment to 2018 capital improvement projects budget, park special projects, fully funded account, and Rainbow Memorial Park Ball Field Improvement Fund. Pam,
No one is registered.
bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Please take the roll.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Rousey,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
carried 6.
New resolutions, we have 3. The first is Resolution 18-539, approve conditional use permit and specific implementation plan for a multifamily development northwest corner of West 6th Avenue and Oregon Street, commonly referred to as the Morgan District. Pam?
Yes, we have Peter Lane, 2300 White Swan Drive.
Good evening. You guys are cruising tonight. I don't really have anything specific to say. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Mr. Lang, regarding the enclosure fence that was discussed in there for the pool, do you have any thoughts or ideas on what kind of materials you anticipate? I know it said that that would be added in later, but is it, would it be blocking visibility in terms of that kind of visual openness between, let's say, Oregon Street and the riverfront, seeing as how it's going to be in that smaller setback, from what I understand, looking at the plans?
So I think the answer is kind of. I think we want at least a lower section that, if not, provides some privacy via landscape plants or a sort of living fence so that people don't feel like they're on display when they're next to the pool. They'll want some privacy at the lower level, but I certainly think the 6 foot high is more for security to keep people from easily accessing the pool when they're walking home along the Riverwalk. So it'll probably be a mix. I don't see it being a completely solid opaque fence, but I do believe there'll be some opacity to the lower half.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. And then on the setbacks, it looks like Plan Commission had recommended allowing for those to be increased. What was kind of the reason or impetus for that?
Well, so if you look at our alignment with Fifth Avenue and sort of trying to, that is a private drive, But our goal was to align with existing public right-of-ways and sort of make those streetscapes part of the existing neighborhood. The river sort of pulls away there, and then additionally, as we get into bearing on bedrock, where the river is, that bedrock is 10 to 15 feet deeper, so the closer we get to that, the harder it gets to.
Do you see, or I don't know, perhaps looks like you have some renderings down here. Is there maybe something that can be shown that shows how this abuts the Riverwalk?
I guess I'm not sure.
Just looking at the section of the Riverwalk there, that, let's say, for example, kind of where it starts to go into, I don't know, a little bit of a peninsula there. Your property actually abuts that, or there's an easement, as I understand it, for the
Yeah.
Riverwalk, I should say.
Yes.
But I mean, is it going to have the feel of accessibility, or is it going to be, I mean, it looks like there's some, again, some additional landscaping that would kind of maybe shut things off a bit. I'm curious what your, vision is in terms of the public and the walkway and how that is buffered or
Sure. So
comes together.
What I think buffer is probably the key word I would use there. So the green area between the buildings that you see kind of laid out in a line, A1, A2, A3, A4, we identify that as passive green space. So that will sort of be our de facto riverfront park or our front porch. I think if you think of traditional design from the 50s, you had a tighter setback to the roadway, and people had open common porches. So although we are set a little bit back off of our shared riverwalk, our idea would be to have that passive green space sort of act as the shared semi-private, semi-public space that's adjacent to the development. I think there'll be entrances and exits off of it, but that will probably be the space where we have residents who are able to utilize that along the river, right?
It's very nice, very exciting. Thank you.
I see no one on the, Mr. Moverower.
Sorry for that, Mr. Mayor, I was a little slow on the button. No, I want to say it looks great, and I think it's going to be a big improvement as to what's been there the last 10 years, a big pile of rubble, and before that, a commercial and industrial facility. And I commend you and your partners. It looks good, and you'll get a yes vote from me at least. So.
Appreciate it. We're excited to get started.
Would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Mugrower.
Aye.
Krause.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Carried 6.
Thank you.
Thank you. It looks great. Resolution 18-540, approved 2019-2020 strategic plan. Pam,
No one is registered.
bring it back to council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, this question is for Mr. Roloff. When we're talking about in the resolution, identify our objectives and strategies for the goals in the strategic plan, including the ways that staff are going to be able to measure those accomplishments, and that it's my understanding that we will be receiving something in the near future on these kind of key performance measures. Is that what we're referring to here? And just kind of wanting to confirm that.
The short answer is yes, but I'll let Mr. Fitzpatrick provide a little detail. We do have something for a workshop, to schedule a workshop on that very subject later on in this meeting.
As a matter of fact, yes, thank you for bringing that up. We do have a performance management team that's been working very hard on developing key performance measures for each department, and they're excited to show that to the council. They've worked very hard on it, and in conjunction with our software we have, we'll be able to establish dashboards not only for each individual department, but also a public-facing dashboard for the community. So I think it's a very exciting project. I know that the council's been very patient, waiting for some of those more hard measures, and we appreciate their patience, but we're making some good progress.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Welcome.
Would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Kraus?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Carried 6.
Next is Resolution 18541, approved general development plan for a school located at 3485 Lake Butamore Drive. Plan Commission recommends approval. Pam?
The one is registered.
I'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Herman?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to compliment, I see Mr. Ganther's in the audience, I believe, and just the whole project. It's an opportunity to get something going on that northwest side of the city that is kind of not even thought about as being part of the city. It's close to the marshy areas of the city, but it is close to the trail, and it's close to the subdivisions out in that area. So I think it's going to be a great addition to the city, and I'm excited to see the progress of a private school making another venture into the Oshkosh area, and it looks like it's going to be a great project, of which I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
I see no one else wishing to discuss this resolution, so would you please take the roll?
Allison Osby?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Kraus?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Carried 6.
Now we have discussion, council discussion, direction to city manager, and future agenda items. Future workshops, A is starting times for future workshops. Mark, did you want to have a discussion now to get a feel for the council, what we would like to do going forward?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate to have a general discussion. Unfortunately, Councilmember Peck isn't here, and a discussion that he and I had about his availability due to his work, new work schedule. Is the 5 o'clock workshop really the right time? We've had a good run of success with it being at 5 o'clock, but everybody's schedules being what they are. I just put it out there to say, is there some other time that you may want to consider? I'm not necessarily recommending this. In fact, I think from the staff standpoint, the other thing we used to do before we switched to 5 o'clock, we did it at the conclusion of the council meeting. Now, for an evening like this, where it's a relatively short agenda, that might be okay. But there were times when we were having 2-3 hour meetings, and to start a workshop at 9 in the evening just doesn't have the same energy and focus that council would have. So another idea that the mayor and I were kicking around is, do we perhaps do it on an off Tuesday? We'll be meeting 6 o'clock on the first and third Tuesdays. They wouldn't have to be, we absolutely have to have a meeting that day, but making that available, perhaps at say 6 o'clock, then it gives you a little more time, because sometimes we are stretched for time. This evening's workshop took us till 10 to 6, so we were pushing on the 6 o'clock hour. We're certainly willing to do whatever meets council's schedule, but things have evolved over time, and perhaps we need to revisit that. So you'll notice later on in the agenda, I have a lot of to be determined and times and dates, because I wanted to get some feedback from council on when you wanted to do those. We only have a few meetings left for the year, and just want some feedback on some of these workshops that are coming up.
Councilmember Herman.
Thank you, Mayor. Having been on the council the longest, senior member, I guess I can speak on this behalf. I would think it depends on the topic as much as anything. I know the salary compensation study is important. I think all council members want to hear that. That being said, that there are times maybe 5 is appropriate. I understand, in Mr. Peck's case, he's got a 45-minute travel now. But I think off council Tuesdays, again, I think it depends on the workshop, because there are times I think when other council members have questions, but they hold back, and then we're at the time to quit. And so maybe 6 o'clock on maybe an off Tuesday on an important topic that is more policy driven than informational driven might be the way to look at some of these things. If it involves a policy switch or a change or something that we think that the community is going to want to weigh in on, then I think maybe having it on an off day so that all council members can attend or possibly attend would be more appropriate. So I think it really depends on the topic. At least that's my opinion. I don't know how the rest of council members think, but that's the way I look at it. the importance of the workshop and what it brings to the council and to the citizens that we represent. Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have two things that I would just like to include as food for thought on this, and that is, it's 2018. Many of these kinds of informational meetings take place via webinars or have at least the ability for dial-in for phone conferencing, especially if it's, just a flow of information as opposed to, like Councilmember Herman was suggesting, more policy, substantive topics. So I guess I would just, push for us to get a little more current in our digital capabilities or our virtual capabilities so that those who aren't local for either work or other reasons could participate either via phone or webinar. I guess the other alternative I would throw out there is the 7:30 a.m. or the brown bag lunch time frame.
Okay, that will not work for many people as far as brown bag, but my time is pretty flexible. I agree with Councilmember Herman that I think that subject matter should kind of dictate when and the time. I think we found a lot of these workshops, if we do them before the meeting, it's 45 minutes, and we're rushing people through. The presenter is being rushed through. We're rushed through. We don't have adequate time to really ask questions and discuss. So if we can do a kind of a flexible, based on the council agenda and the importance of the workshop, it's going to be a little, I guess, flexible is the best thing I can say. So, Councilmember Mugarauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I couldn't have said it better than Councilmember Herman. I think it really is policy-driven or agenda-driven. Tonight's was a relatively quick one, but yet, we ran up right against the time frame. There's been a couple that I participated in that you have very little time for actual interaction and learning in those times. And that's a good time to actually interact with the fellow council members and ask questions and just get informed. 5 o'clock's a good time for most times, but if we need to do it at 4:30 on a given night, or if we needed to do it on an off night, then that has to be an option. But I think after the normal business hours is probably the more appropriate time, not necessarily early morning or midday for most of us. But I don't want to speak for anyone else.
Councilmember Ellison Osby.
I am open to all and above and agree with every single council member that spoke because I do agree with Ms. Palmieri. There's certainly technology out there that allows us to do things. I think the other thing is too, is not that I wouldn't love being in a Tuesday meeting every week in the month, but for those of some of us that do travel, those off weeks, of council is an appropriate time for people, some professionals that travel. And I think the other thing too is, to Mr. Herman's point regarding, how, all workshops are relevant, but what is the true significance regarding policy? I think that certainly dictates it. And if a council member cannot make it due to a work schedule or out of town schedule, it's their responsibility to go online. That's why they are televised, in order to stay informed. And as somebody who's had other things going on, you rely on that as a means of educating yourself on what transpired and what your other council members are thinking and saying.
Thank you. Councilmember Krause.
I agree with most of the statements from everybody up here. I think the meetings have to be looked at by a case-by-case basis. We get notices and we can all talk about it a couple weeks ahead of time. If somebody needs to be there, we can be flexible on those days to make sure that that individual's allowed to be there. But I agree, a lot of the stuff is online. They can call in. They could, if their job is done at 5 o'clock, they could always FaceTime in and we could turn their phone around and they could see everything going on if they want to sit and wait and listen to the meeting at that time. There's options to be able to participate in any meeting. But I tend to agree the nighttime meetings are the best because a lot of people on council right now do work during the day.
Mr. Roloff, do you have sufficient direction for?
Yeah, I think this gives us, and as we get to the next topics, we'll work on that flexibility part, I guess. We'll test ourselves. But yeah, I appreciate that. That's good feedback. Thank you very much.
One other little
Deputy Mayor
addition on
Palmieri.
that. Thank you, Mayor. Sorry. So we're going to be looking at potential technology upgrades for council in terms of phone. So perhaps that's something that could be discussed as those options are looked at.
Yeah, I really appreciate that type of suggestion. That doesn't have the same issues that the regular council meeting does, so the flexibility with the technology, well, I'll throw it out to Mr. Newman and challenge him to see what he can come up with, and appreciate that feedback.
All right, next we have budget workshops, October 29 and 30, 2018, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., both days, room 404, which is this building.
We'll have something in the morning for arrival, and we'll have lunch planned
Right.
during those days as well.
And we have the budget hearing November 7, 2018, at 5 p.m. in room 404. The budget workshop, joint meeting with Long Range Finance Committee will follow the budget hearing. Next, we have performance measurement team workshop, December 11, time to be determined.
We don't have a good handle on how long that meeting on the 11th would be, so I can't give you an indicator of that. I suspect it's going to take at least an hour, I think, in terms of what Mr. Fitzpatrick wanted to do.
I mean, in regard to the current discussion that council members had, it will be more informational. It won't be a policy-focused workshop. I think the potential exists for us to get done with it in the traditional 45-minute time frame, if that's something the council wishes and meets with their schedule.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
So 5 o'clock, does that seem like a reasonable time for
Sure.
that one? Got it. Thank you.
Next, we have City Hall and Parks Facility Workshop, times and dates to be determined.
Both of those studies, in fact, the park study's been done for quite a while. It was really more just waiting on the City Hall study. We've got both of those. One, the Parks Facility study was done by Bolt, and the FGM, who many of you met with, are done with the City Hall study. With both of those, we could split those up. They don't necessarily have to be together, but certainly we're running out of time. There is the 28th of November, which is a possibility. I don't know, Mr. Fitzpatrick, what you think about time-wise for that one?
For the which one?
For the City Hall and the parks?
I think if we combine them, it's going to be too long for a traditional 45-minute workshop. That would be my opinion. So if we separated them, I think it would allow us to still place them, because this will be a little more informational. It'll certainly be a foundational report that will affect other decisions budgetarily going forward, but at this stage, it's more informational for the council to see the outcomes.
Councilmember Herman.
When you mean budgetary, you're talking 2019 budget, CIP, things like that?
And potentially beyond. It really depends on how the council wants to
And I guess with the
tackle it.
shortness of the holidays and everything, I think if there's going to be two separate workshops, that we can easily move them into January. Even though the work is done already, I don't think there's a need to rush with the end of the year and the holidays and everything. Some people take vacation towards Thanksgiving, some people take it before Christmas. So I'm thinking that where it has no 18 budgetary /19 impact into our current budget, that going into January would be a more appropriate. That way there's flexibility to having it on a council night in the month of January, one week, and then our second meeting in January, the second one.
And I guess I would add too, and certainly City Manager Roloff knows this, sometimes at the beginning meetings in January aren't quite as populated with workshops and/or agenda items, but you never can tell.
Councilmember Ungerauer.
I guess I just have thanks you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but do we need to have those workshops before the end of 2018? Is that a high priority? Or is that something that you're okay with it getting pushed off for 8 weeks?
I guess I defer to City Manager Roloff.
I think we can wait.
Okay.
Yeah, as we talked about, one of the concepts we're going to be talking about with CIPs is favorable economic conditions. These projects absolutely fall into that category. they're not even in the CIP until we find an opportunity that maybe we can do it, and that's going to be based on how well the economy's going. They're really interesting. The City Hall options, real exciting. And maybe what we can do is maybe get you some information in advance so you can start absorbing it and whatnot. But I don't see a problem with January if that's what you want.
I would agree with the January in the magnitude of the City Hall project. I think it's going to be so sizable, and the cost is a high price tag on it. That let's wait until January. Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
Thanks, Mayor. I would say, though, that if we are going to move it up into January, depending upon how much time we are looking at, I wouldn't necessarily feel required to limit that to 45 minutes on a council evening and bringing those two together rather than separating them out, because there will be, I'm sure, tangential discussions.
I would agree that this one would probably take more than a 45-minute meeting, so we might have to look at creatively an off Tuesday or just another day. So we'll look into the January crystal ball and see if we could throw out some options for you.
All right, thank you. Next, item 32 is petition received regarding bike lanes on West Haven Drive. Discussion regarding referral to Traffic and Park Advisory Board, Sustainability Advisory Board, and Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Board. Mr. Roloff?
As council recalls, the last meeting you were presented with a petition from residents along West Haven Drive. All of these committees at one point or another had some say into the bike and ped plan. It would probably be appropriate to refer it to each of those. I wanted to wait until this is your first opportunity to discuss it, because it wasn't appropriate to discuss last time. But given the fact that all three have chimed in, I think they would probably want to provide you some feedback on that. So that would be my recommendation to the council to refer it to these committees.
Councilmember Herman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, having been on both, I think I was on the bike and pet at the time it was approved, and actually now I'm on traffic and parking. I think it's appropriate when the citizens, when we enact something and then we have citizen concerns, because maybe, we didn't, one of the boards, commissions, or even council didn't maybe weigh in a factor that now came up. I think it's appropriate that at least we listen and maybe discuss it, and maybe in the end it will stay the same. But from what we heard at the last council meeting and with the petition, the concern is that they lost all that parking and they don't have a lot of options because it's a condominium area with limited parking. So, as I mentioned, maybe road trails would be an option. I know it's in our bike and pedestrian plan, but as we've said time and time again, it's a plan. It's a work in progress and things that we need to do. And I know it's a connecting route, and that's so. But I think if we're going to if council agrees to relook at it, I think it should go back through the committees and let them weigh in again and look at the information, and then maybe even, take it a step farther of, actually inviting those people to those boards and commission meetings and let them, weigh in on what they're losing in parking and how it affects their lifestyle where they're living, because they're part of the city. Thank you.
Councilmember Mugarauer.
No, I happen to agree. Send it back to all three for their review. We've got to balance, the road concerns as well as the bike concerns and the pedestrian concerns. And this one, while it maybe looked good on paper and in theory, it may not be exactly practical in this particular neighborhood because of how the parking is broken up. The entire west side is good for parking. The entire east side of that stretch from Witzel up to Festival Foods there, it's very broken up. There's very little parking available on that side. And with it being the type of situation that for the people who live there, being condominiums and multifamily as well, adding parking back on that street is an important thing to at least consider. So I would recommend that they highly consider that as an option.
My only comment is I would recommend that all council members, if you haven't, just drive down that section of West Haven from Wetzel to Highway 21 and see what's going on. And drive 25 miles an hour. Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
Thanks, Mayor. So as the current liaison for the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, I know that we are in the process of, updating and bringing forth new plan materials. But I just want to say, as a general rule, where I stand on any consideration of removing bike paths, I'm not a fan of that idea. It may be somewhat inconvenient to some auto traffic at times or parking, but it would be taking a step backwards from, what we're trying to incorporate is not just this auto-dependent west side of Oshkosh. And I don't want to pick on the west side. I do appreciate the time and effort that those folks, put the petition together. I think there's a dozen or so folks that signed that. But as a general rule, I think we would be highly ill-advised to start removing bike paths.
It is now time for citizen statements to council. Pam, has anyone registered?
No one is registered.
And we'll move on to council member announcements and statements. The Rental Housing Advisory Board update, inspections and districts, Deputy Mayor Palmieri and Councilmember Mugarauer. It's your time.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a little bit of an update on what we have in terms of the inspections program and the districts. What I'd like to say is that appreciate everybody that's been working so hard on this, that's been involved. We do have some proposed districts that came out of the advisory board, and thanks to Councilmember Mugarauer in his capacity as a resident representative on that board and some leadership that he showed, we actually are looking at some very similar districts to the original intent of this program. So it's kind of come full circle, and it is data-driven based on some excellent GIS and data analysis work by staff. And I will turn it over to Matt to share his thoughts on that.
I second Councilmember Palmieri's comments, especially regarding the data information. Staff has been great to work with in this process, and being willing to update the information they give us very quickly, very readily, and making sure that they were responding to our questions and needs pretty quickly. So thank you to Alan and his staff and everybody there that worked on this. The purpose of those districts, or the design of those districts, really is it's data driven. It's not anecdotal. It's not just because we felt a neighborhood looked bad or anything of those natures. We looked at very specific data points that's readily available to us. There's some correction notice data, census data that's relevant, some GIS and some assessor data, as well as some crime data from the police department, to really focus in on well, two really big districts and two really smaller districts. And I think council can take a look at those, really hone in on what their thoughts are on those. The second part of that is, I think council really has to decide what their real goal is with a rental inspection program. We can do a program that improves neighborhoods, that stabilizes property values. We can do a program that improves health and safety of rental properties as well. I don't know, and I did support it, but I don't know that the proposal coming to us shortly will achieve those very well. We had a very low effective rate of our previous program, and this one's going to be similar to that. And for the dollars that we're going to put at it, I think we could get a much better return on our investment by doing something even more deliberate, even more comprehensive. And so the only thing I ask for council at this point, since the ordinance isn't before us, is really hone in on what is our objective. Are we really trying to improve neighborhoods? Or are we trying to improve housing value? Because if we have a goal of improving neighborhoods, then we need to be looking at all properties within those neighborhoods, owner occupied and and rental. If we have a goal of improving health and safety, which is a very good goal to have, then our objective should be to enter the properties to improve health and safety. You can't, you can do both. It's very difficult to do both. I just asked my fellow council members to take those concerns into account when we move through this process over the next few meetings. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Palmieri.
Yeah, just to add on a little closing comment on that too, and that is, I think that while the quantities or the numbers may not be to Councilmember Moverhour's liking, I don't think we can argue with the types of impact that we have seen and some of the successes from the approach that we've taken, in that there are these spillover effects. In case you haven't, driven around this summer through the central city and seen many of these homes' exteriors have been painted and repaired, and homes that I've seen sit and deteriorate for a number of years. And, we could argue about correlation and causation, but it is highly coincidental that since we did enact this program, there have been a number of properties that have been inspired and received some makeovers. So I'm really excited to see that. It gives me hope for what we're trying to accomplish with health, safety, and property value.
Councilmember Herman.
Well, I'll just weigh in a little bit, since I was on the council when we approved the initial. I think they're all the things that Mr. Councilmember Moore was talking about, and even Deputy Mayor Palmieri. I think the city wants to improve the quality of all our housing in the city, and citizens have that option. If they're in code violation, citizens can file a complaint, and our department will go out and inspect it, whether it's rental property or single-family housing. But I do think that when you have rundown properties in the neighborhood, whether it's single-family properties or you have apartments run down, it affects the neighborhood as a whole. It affects the crime rate as a whole. It affects just the well-being of the neighborhood in and of itself. So I think the goals are what he brought up, that we want in a rental inspection program. We want the landlords to work with the city. We want the tenants to let city staff in, so that we can make sure that all the requirements that we're looking at are mostly health and safety anyways, that they live in a health and safety location. And I do think, as Deputy Mayor Palmieri mentioned, I think a lot of property owners have stepped up this summer. I've seen a lot of new roofs being put on, new porches being done, some painting, some siding being done. And I think that just the talk of it got some of them interested in it, because they want to have some pride in their property. And I know sometimes it's not the landlord that wrecks the property or lets it go, it's the tenant. And so it's a combination of that too. And I think, I know one of the reasons that the board was put together was to look at possibly having some type of training for not only the property owners, but the rental people too, to learn how to take care of the property, how to work with their landlord when there are issues. So I think it's an all-inclusive program, and I think by taking our time and getting as many people engaged as we have, we'll make that program that much better. So I'll be looking forward to what council will be making decisions on, but I support all the comments that were made previously. Thank you, Mayor.
Just one comment. I've been involved in this whole program since the beginning, going back a number of years, and it all began with our neighborhood associations, and they were saying the biggest factor to our neighborhoods being not desirable property values is poorly maintained rental properties, specifically rental properties, and rental properties are a business. Our homes are not a business. Health and safety is the number one thing we want to address. We understand the program initially was not as successful as we wanted, but we had to work around the state statutes. Landlords sending letters of intimidation to their tenants certainly didn't help the program get its legs. And I would hope the landlords would look at this as, it's going to benefit them in the long run. As far as property values, when it comes time for them to sell, a well-maintained property is going to get more money than a poorly maintained property. I'm on the board of GOH, and I were looking at a home that was built as a duplex, and it boggles my mind how people can destroy a property that quickly. And I'm sure it's not all the landlord, it has to be tenant damage, but that piece of property was a nice home when it was built. It was a nice neighborhood, and if you drive past it, I wouldn't want to live there. I had the neighbor across the street come over who had bought the house next door, was putting in a lawn. He was anxious to see the city and GOH and I do something with that duplex to stabilize the value of this home and actually raise it. So the community is looking forward to this. There's support for it. Everyone understands the need for it. Having been in real estate, there are a lot of homeowners, when it comes time to sell their home, they don't know that there are some things that have gone haywire over the years. I've been in the same home 45 years. I know there's stuff in there that you kind of get used to it, you overlook it, you forget about it. And I think this inspection program will not only bring that to light, that these things over the time have deteriorated, you've got to fix it. It should be looked at as a benefit to them. It's like selling a home. We tell the homeowner, you should do a home inspection. On your dime, you hire the home inspector, and it gets things repaired that have to be repaired, so the new buyer isn't discovering things that you wind up in court with. So it should look at a service we are providing to help boost the value of the landlord's property and find things that you just don't know about. And well, it's things that the tenants do. So I'm looking forward to what the program will be, the ordinance and so forth. But I think this is very critical, not only to the city of Oshkosh. In my trips to Madison with other mayors and city managers addressing the legislatures, it's an issue not only in a city like Milwaukee, it's an issue in a small town like Ashland, Wisconsin. They need to address these properties in their communities to maintain the quality of life in their communities. So with that, anything else? Move over, Deputy Mayor?
Nope.
We'll move on to city manager announcements and statements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your packet, you received a copy of our third quarter strategic plan update, and this is kind of the home stretch because we're in the last, this is the third quarter of the second year of a two-year plan. Certainly happy to answer any questions you might have. I think the real issue here is you're getting into some of these, looking at it at this point, a lot of these goals are ongoing, so they may not necessarily be completed. So I give that sort of caveat with everything, but I'm still happy to report, as you see on page 2, the overall summary, 65% of our projects are on track and 30.7% are completed. So basically, about 95% of our projects are either on track or completed. So I think we're doing very well. There are a handful of items throughout the document you'll see where caution is on there, but we're making progress, I think, where we need to be. The areas where there are areas of caution, certainly happy to talk about. Some were staffing related, but, kind of back on track. The, some issues with getting the financial system up and running with staffing changes in finance, but we caught up with that. Some awareness of public health and safety, I think that's going to continue, but I think staff recognized, we're still a little bit on hold with some of that. But mostly, we're on track or completed, and so that's very good. Still have work to do, but I think a lot of this will carry over with the new strategic plan. I'm just happy to answer any questions that you might have. I just wanted to just get it out there, and certainly even after tonight, if you have any questions after looking at it, don't hesitate. I would suggest you start with Mr. Fitzpatrick, but certainly if it's related to a specific department, don't be shy about calling a department head and asking a specific question. Any questions right now?
Thank you.
The other issue is we have the Oshkosh Corp update, as we normally do. things are going very well. Mr. Davis and his staff meet regularly with the staff at Oshkosh Corporation to make sure things are on track. And Public Works is also doing that relative to the infrastructure, which both are on track. We're probably looking with Oshkosh Corporation about their special assessments associated with the improvements for the brand-new roads. That is different than special assessing for replacement. These are brand new, so the developers and the beneficiaries of that area should be paying for that. And that will likely be probably November 28th or maybe later, but it won't be at the next meeting. With budget going on and we have, with elections going on, we just have a lot of things going on, and we'll have it ready. And I think we've got it all worked out with Public Works and Community Development in terms of spreading the cost to the other development projects. Think of all the stuff along Oshkosh Avenue and the roads going in. All you were looking at with the maps tonight, I think we got it pretty well covered. Fair for everybody, but distributing the costs appropriately. So that's the Oshkosh Corp update. I've just got a place marker in there because I think it's appropriate. After the November 14th meeting, the elevator in City Hall goes down. So from November 15th through the end of 2018, we won't have elevator service at City Hall. And we'll be making adjustments for people with, to accommodate any needs people have that cannot climb the stairs. We'll have somebody down on the first floor to address any needs, and we'll bring staff to them as we need to. We'll still have staff meetings and things like that probably up here, but we also have the public safety building, the old courtrooms. We've made some nominal changes there, and we've got a work schedule, or a meeting schedule for all of the public meetings, which we are required to make sure are accessible. Those will all be taken care of. So your November 28th meeting and December 11th meeting will be held over in what we're affectionately calling SB1, the big #1 room on the first floor of the public safety building. That's that. Absentee voting is continuing, and I think City Clerk Ubrig has some statistics to share. We had a very good first week, and it's continuing into this week as well.
As of close today, we've processed just under 900 in-person voting. We will continue through until next Friday, and then I want to remind everybody that we are open this Saturday from 9 until noon, and that they should bring their ID with them. And then I did want to point out, since September 20th, we mailed out just under 1,600 absentee ballots to individuals. So thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Just a reminder, trick or treat next week, 5 to 7 p.m. on the 31st. Number 39, council will recall a goal that you had asked me to work on. This was right after we opened the Public Works Garage, about having open houses for the public to come and see kind of behind the scenes stuff. Mr. Maurer and the Parks Department are happy to host the next open house and meet and greet. It's scheduled for Saturday, November 10th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's an open house, there's no program. We've noticed it as a public meeting, but council is certainly welcome to join us and take a look around. I know with the Parks Facilities Study, I'm sure Ray's showing you good and bad associated with the Parks Department. But that's part of what we do. But I think it's also letting people know the services we provide and just giving a little slice of what they do. And unless you have any questions, we're going to do our second of our 5 video series, about a minute and a half. This one is our Welcome to Oshkosh video focused on infrastructure. So are there any questions before we get rolling with that? Because I had to give Jake a moment to walk up and cue it up and everything. Any other questions about anything else I had? Then Jake,
Just real quick.
Yeah, please,
Going
yeah.
back, just going back to the Oshkosh Corporation update. There was some reference to the, I guess, the expectations of what we had hoped were going to happen. We're still kind of not sure about one of the grants that's been, is it the TAP grant?
No, that one, the TAP grant was awarded. It's the grant we wrote to Wisconsin DNR regarding the Riverwalk from the 41 Causeway over to Pinoqua. And DNR staff sent us a letter giving us a tentative award, but pointed out that joint finance still has to approve that award in January. So we're going to start working on it like we're expecting it to be awarded in January, like we're hoping. We are confirming that everything we work on will be reimbursable for the grant after the joint finance approves our grant in January.
Very nice.
But that was very good news that we heard regarding the $800,000.
Yeah.
Right, it's nice to get that, even if it is a tentative approval.
Yes.
Yeah, that's 793, that's great. So, yeah, that's where our Riverwalk focus is shifting, but right now, that's where it should be. And this is in areas off-site of the Oshkosh Corporation site. So we got the money from Oshkosh Corp for literally their length. This is going on, so we're gonna have a pretty sizable dent in our Riverwalk next year, and we're excited about that.
And I guess just a real quick question then for Ray, as it relates to that then. Do you anticipate over the winter, if we have snow, I mean, those farmers' almanacs aren't always right? That there will or won't be some of the cross-country skiing and things like that, sections of that open?
I do believe that the county does not plow the snow off of there, the historic, the causeway and so forth. Depending on the grant funding, there are some requirements that it is cleared during the winter months. I believe the TAP grant is one of those, so we may have to clear certain sections. My intent along that section of the lakeshore site would be that would not be plowed at this point, but we haven't determined that. But it's all dependent on some of the grant funding as well.
And that's related to the Riverwalk, to the trail, but
To the trail.
I guess my question is, this winter,
I'm sorry.
leading up to that, those undeveloped areas that are still what we've deemed to be park, will you be opening that up or allowing that?
I think we'll continue to evaluate how the street reconstruction and all the stormwater facilities are going, and we do discuss that on a staff level on a regular basis, so we'll continue to keep a look at that. If the construction is lessened or completed at a certain period, we would be taking a look at possibly opening sections.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Just a follow-up.
Councilmember Herman.
It's not really a follow-up, but a comment, because I do work part-time for the county parks. Tribal Trail is not plowed by recommendation of the highway department, and parks, because of the snow bloom, when they plow, you'll have nothing but ice on the tribal trail. You'll have to be salting it to make it safe for citizens. So it was deemed not feasible financially even to keep it plowed for the winter months and safety.
And it is Wisconsin, there will be snow. There already has been this fall.
Ready
Jake?
to roll? Okay, this is the infrastructure segment of the video, correct?
The City of Oshkosh, Wisconsin puts a high priority on developing and maintaining infrastructure for its residents and businesses. The city's Department of Public Works has established a comprehensive plan that maps out city roads in need of repair and is continuously working to reconstruct major roadways and residential streets. Residents can be reimbursed as much as $1,500 to help replace lead water service lines to their homes through the city's lead service line replacement program. And new investments are being made to maintain the quality of the city's drinking water. Being surrounded by beautiful waterways means the city must continuously invest in its stormwater infrastructure. Storm sewers and detention basins protect city streets, homes, and businesses from flooding, while also protecting local lakes and rivers from pollution. Since 2000, the city has constructed approximately 90 miles of storm sewer. The city also collaborates on public infrastructure items like the Oshkosh Transload Terminal. With public investment, a grant from the Wisconsin DOT, and a railroad operator looking to invest in the city, the first and only publicly owned transload terminal in the state was recently constructed. The facility provides the transfer of products and goods from truck to rail for businesses that don't have access to rail on their current site. With high quality of life, beautiful landscapes, and a constantly developing infrastructure, Oshkosh is the perfect place to live, work, and play.
Nice job.
Sound good, Jake? Oh, was it? It sounded like you.
He did the first one.
Okay. Sorry, Scott.
Now Deputy Mayor Palmer would like to do a motion to go into a closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. The council may convene into closed session pursuant to Section 19.851C of Wisconsin State Statutes to discuss the performance evaluation and compensation regarding city manager, an employee over which the common council has jurisdiction and exercises responsibility.
I would like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
No, Mayor,
Sec-
sorry.
We
I'm
need
sorry.
a second.
We need a second and
Oh,
then
yeah.
take the vote.
Right. I'll make it second.
Discussion. Now we'll take the vote.
Allison Osby?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Rousey?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Carried 6.
Now we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn.